My name is Neil Belton. I'm an editor at Faber and Faber, and I have the honour to be Philip Blond's editor, and we're here tonight to launch his book. It's fair to say that very little in my personal or professional past has prepared me to make even a brief speech at the Carlton Club, but it's a more than ironic pleasure to be here this evening to launch Philip Blond's remarkable book. As a publisher, you learn to live with many kinds of irony. Books that you care most passionately about sometimes fail horribly in the marketplace. Critics are indifferent. Readers simply don't take up your urgent invitation to buy the book. But I think I can safely predict that indifference won't be the fate of Red Tory. The contrasting reviews in yesterday's paper have, I suspect, set the pattern for its reception. One thoughtful and sympathetic, the other barely able to contain the writer's outrage. Faber, this is obviously an intensely political event, a very intensely political moment. Faber doesn't have a horse in the election race that will inevitably be on the minds of most of you here this evening. Our interest is in sponsoring provocative and interesting ideas and in good writing. Philip's arguments have stirred up more debate in the past year than seemed humanly possible in an exhausted British political landscape. His book brings together what are usually thought of as disparate political traditions and promises a new departure in British social and economic policy. Given its roots in theology and philosophy, it would probably have appealed strangely to the most illustrious Faber editor of them all, T.S. Eliot. In any case, my colleagues and I hope that the debate stirred up by Red Tory is an enduring and serious one. It will be interesting, to say the least, how close these ideas can come to the heart of a future government, and if they increase the quotient of democracy and equality in our society, the book will have been more than well worth doing. This is Philip's night, and I'm going to hand over to him now to speak. To David Willits.
Thank you very much. I'm not Philip Blond. My name is David Willits, and it's a great pleasure to be invited here to say a few words about the launch of Philip's book. I think we're all familiar with the way things have gone. For the past few years, Labour has had a comfortable intellectual lead over the Conservatives. They were the party of ideas, and there were large numbers of intellectuals who were writing books that set out in various forms a kind of progressive Labour case. And then just as the election gets closer, there has come a last-minute surge from the centre-right. And now, suddenly, with just weeks to go, we're gaining ground, and it's very exciting for us in the battle of ideas. And Philip's book, Red Tory, is a contribution to that intellectual surge from the centre-right that has taken people so much by surprise. In fact, I tried to make a modest contribution to that myself with my book, The Pinch, out a few weeks ago. I was suggesting to Philip we should have a 2-for-1 special offer and aim between us to sort of wipe the board. Now, I think it was Evelyn Waugh who said that the trouble with the Conservative Party was it never put the clock back by so much as a single second. And there is that strand in conservatism, but I don't think it's a strand of conservatism that Philip believes in. It's certainly not a strand of conservatism that I believe in. We do believe in trying to make things better. There is, of course, inevitably a lively debate about how we make things better and how things should be better, but we believe that life in Britain can get better for future generations, can get better by rebuilding a sense of community, and Philip's exciting book is a very important contribution to that argument, and I welcome Philip to the platform tonight.
Well, goodness me, whoever thought it would get this far? I'm told by the head of Faber and Faber that even before it's published, its first print run has already sold out to such an extent that they've just ordered a reprint. And I'm also told today that they've sold the rights to an American publisher, which is quite exciting. This means there might be some longevity to the idea of a new social, political and economic settlement. And in a way, that's really what Red Tory is. Red Tory is an argument that something is really profoundly wrong with our society. Not just the last 10 years, not just the last 20, not just the last 30, but almost the post-war settlement itself is radically awry. And something's wrong in our culture, something's wrong with the way we do business, something's wrong with the way we interact with one another. And what I want to claim, and it's why I hope and pray I will continue to get hysterical reviews from epigones of a settlement that's already failed, from people who are already benefiting from the largesse and vested interests which they themselves have told them, and no doubt their fellows, was in the benefit of everybody else. But guess what? It isn't, and it hasn't been. And we really do need a radical change. Why Red? Why Tory? Well, call me naive, call me foolish, call me unduly moralistic. I always felt poverty was an obscenity. I always felt that when I walk around societies that are deprived of capital, entrepreneurship and ownership, there's something deeply morally wrong. When I go around the great cities, one of my own birth, Liverpool, which I love greatly, and I see sort of people sort of cut off from capital, locked into asset impoverishment and welfare dependency, I think it's wrong. And I also think that the government hasn't delivered in this country. The government hasn't freed the poor from their lot. Not even a lot of government. Not even more government than we could ever possibly imagine, times 2, times 3, times 4, has done anything other than empower ever more management consultants. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Ever more of its friends, acolytes, and of course the epigones who inhabit far too much of our conceptual architecture. And I always thought that this wasn't the natural capture, the natural place. The left has failed to deliver for the poor. That's my basic thesis. It doesn't mean they had to fail to deliver. They could have succeeded. And if they had succeeded, they would have had my support. But they haven't. And that's why I was so excited by the idea of a refigured and a revivified conservatism. A civic conservatism, as David's work has shown from many years ago now. That if we could have a revivified civic settlement, and if we could ally that, and this is the new bit, ally that with a political economy, ally that with a new dispensation, then conservatism, concern with tradition, locality, and people, could actually speak in the name of a new radicalism. And that's why Red Tory, because the claim is that the Tories can deliver for the poor if they get the measures right, if they're radical enough, if they come up with the settlement that's needed and don't repeat the past, and I think the signs are good, then they can really deliver a step change in our society, and one we sorely, sorely need. That's why Red Tory, because we need something different, and we need it now, and all the people, all the apologetics, all the corrupt, sad, failed agendas that seek to return to the past, it's just not good enough. Neither on the right, nor on the left, and certainly not in the middle. Okay, what's the thesis of Red Tory? If you mind, I know you're not allowed to talk about philosophy or history in this country, but what the hell. The thesis of Red Tory is that we have centralised the power of the state and monopolised the wealth of the market. And we have done this by suppressing associative society in the name of the self-interested individual and the sovereign power of the state. We have produced an oligarchical economy that only works for the already wealthy, and a state that advances only the already well-placed. We have achieved this dubious settlement, one that has broken our economy and our society and our democracy, by following over these last 30 years, and actually, and this will be my point, over these last 50 or 60 years, an ideology of unfettered individualism. So my first charge is against unfettered individualism. And contrary to current belief and nostrums, that individualism is not a recently arrived right-wing narrative. Its origin in our culture is left-wing. Individualism is left-wing. It was prefigured by the